for the day. Let me do a couple of my startup tasks while people filter in. All right. So what I'm doing right now is looking for a little bit of CSS help. This is typically how I handle when I need to make fancy stuff with CSS. Like right now, I'm looking to make a folded corner effect for some post-it notes that I'm going to make. And so I'm looking for some examples on CodePen. Hey Matthias, how's it going? Because I'm not that great at like CSS, this kind of stuff, so looking for some examples here, and I found one that I like that I think sort of makes sense to me. Only issue is it works a little differently because it makes the top part of the sticky note like a negative margin, so it's kind of hard. Like you can't put any text up in this part. Usually the text starts much further down here. But there was one more thing I wanted to look up. I think Chris from CSS Tricks had a cool example that I liked. Yeah, that wasn't the one actually. There was one that I saw that was pretty cool that had a nice animation that I was going to look at and see if I could find. If you go on CodePen and stuff like this, you know, you can see there's a lot of these different examples, and this is how I will find a lot of little like UI interactions that I often put into my projects because people have usually thought about this more than I have. So I don't mind using other people's examples at all. Someone had a really cool animated one that of course I can't find now. Oh well, no matter. So the issue is I'm looking to make this component. So I want the post-its to have like a little folded corner effect. And I actually found a long time ago this tutorial from making folded corner effects with CSS, which makes sense to me. But the issue is that it relies on having the background color. And in our design, we don't have a background color, we have a background image. And so it's not actually going to work because you can't just do like transparent here because it's actually using the background color to mask this part is what this is doing. So maybe I'll just go forward with this one, which I think should work. I'm pretty sure it should work. And we will see. And if it doesn't work, then I will just go on with another component. Actually, Matthias, this is just kind of funny. I was looking today at this YouTube component because I'm looking at making, embedding YouTube videos in Svelte, and someone has done this.
Hello and
I found this screencast, which I thought to myself, this is, it sounds like it is made, I was like, is this Matthias from like 2019? Because whoever was doing it was doing it in German, had sort of a similar voice to you. So I don't think this was you, but whoever made this tutorial had me fooled for a second. So. Okay. Yeah, alternatively, I could use SVG. I feel like, I don't know if there's a good way to do this. I always get tripped up. It wasn't you. Yeah, I didn't think so, but for a second, I turned it on. I was like, somebody doing something cool in Svelte, speaking with German accent. Yeah. But I think like all the content inside of here is HTML, and I always run into trouble whenever I try to like wrap HTML in SVG. Like I know there's these ways to do it, like you can have like foreign object or something, and there's like some tricky ways to do it, but I like staying in the world of HTML or SVG. Like I like to try to keep these things separate because when you try to blend them, it's kind of tricky. It's really tricky sometimes. But anyways, why don't I jump into the code? Why don't I just start seeing what I have going here. So this is a project I really haven't done. Much on this. I haven't done anything since last time. You can see it looks exactly the same. Ooh, you could have a Svelte component with an SVG background and an HTML overlay. I don't know how I would do that. Somehow that doesn't make sense in my head. SVG background. If you have an example you can link, let me know. Because like, it sounds like it makes sense. But for some reason, it doesn't make sense in my head. It sounds like it should make sense is what I mean to say. But I'm having trouble figuring out how you would actually do that. Okay. So right now what I have is all these cards, and I have this card component which makes individual cards. These are these things, and this is what I'm going to try to wrap today in the sticky notes. So let me get started on that. I think what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make a new component called post-it.svelte. One of my preferred ways to work in Svelte, I really like slots, and so that's what I'm going to try doing, because I'm going to sort of use this again and again, and I like using slots to basically like silo a bunch of CSS, like a bunch of styling property that I'm going to be applying over and over again. So that's what I'm going to try doing. As an example, is not let released for client project. Basically, you have an SVG layer and a div layer on top of each other. The sync of the dimensions is handled by Svelte then. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so like you're probably like what you bind the component. You just like bind the component width and like set the SVG width as that in like a reactive value or something, I'm guessing. That seems like that would work. Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Especially perhaps for the second example, like the post-it isn't that complicated, and I'm certain it can be accomplished with CSS fairly easily. Perhaps not by me, because like I said, I'm not very good at CSS, but that may be a really good solution for something like either like these, which need to have this like sort of border around them, and also for this, which needs to have, or rather this, which I need to like have this sort of window looking thing, which has a lot of different components, and like maybe I could build this with CSS, but it would be a lot easier to just copy the SVG. So that might be a good application for that. Maybe I'll kind of research that and try to do that next time. But yeah, today I'm going to try to do a slot here. So I don't think for the time being I really need any JavaScript here. So like I'm not going to put a script tag. I might add one later if I need to add like some props to this or some functions that maybe this post-it note has some things that happen when you click on it or something. I don't know. For now, it's not going to have that. And then I have to figure out where this is going to go. So this needs to wrap each of these cards. So it should go in here probably. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm going to import post-it from, oops. And then, so what I'm going to do here is have like a bunch of wrapper divs and stuff, and then I'm going to have a slot in here. And that's where all of the other stuff is going to go. So then we're going to have in here, we're going to wrap all of our content in the post-it. I'm really bad at typing brackets today, apparently. Post-it component. This is a lot of HTML here. Okay. And let me give this a class of post-it wrapper. And I just want to make sure that this is working and I didn't screw anything up. Cool. Okay. So you can see there's a bunch of post-it wrappers now around each of these things. So this is working properly. Our cards are in the slot. And then basically I'm just using this as a nice way to silo and to sort of componentize the CSS for this. Because I could just write all the CSS for the post-it stuff in the card component. But I think it's easier to write it over here, especially because I probably will reuse the post-its in another spot. Like I had this, my initial design, which I don't know if I will go with this is just an idea, but you know, I might use the post-its on the opening page. Who knows, they might be used elsewhere. So it's kind of nice to have it as its own component so that I could reuse it elsewhere. And just reuse that style. Okay, well, let's take a look at this code pen again, the one that I was looking at. So basically, the primary thing in this code pen is we want to make sure that we set, I think we want to make sure that we set the wrapper to position relative, because we're going to have these before and afters that are absolutes, so just to be certain. And then it's also going to get this drop shadow. And I think I'm going to ignore most of this other stuff because this is, I don't think, useful in our case. So the style, we have dot post-it wrapper. And we also do want to give this a background. Let me go to my Figma file and figure out what is this color. I don't know if that's the best color for a post-it, but oops, no, go away, Siri.
U2.Svelte.
Okay, that works.
We can create a new
I can see, of course, that like this is too big. So why is this so big?
Create an export video ID like this, and then under the script tag we can write YouTube.
I see. Perhaps the card list wrapper is the part that's making it too big.
Show our video ID here. So now we can write here 1, 2, 3, 4.
Why is that 100% width?
See in Chrome, YouTube component, video ID 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we go to our YouTube component.
What if I happen to set the max width of this? Because these do need to have a max width.
To Google and search for
And I don't know what that max width is going to be, but let's call it like
and then here we can take
500 pixels for now.
And then we need
okay,
to
so that works.
In this
but now this is too squished. Perhaps the card, I think the card has some styles on it that we probably need to adjust here.
We need to add a div.
Okay, yeah, so the width here says 50%, so we will just take that off.
At the end, when
and then the card, and we don't need the border on the card anymore either.
Pass this ID here.
Okay. And we probably don't even need the margin or the padding or any of that.
Creates a new script tag on my header, and this I only need to do this once.
We can get rid of that, and we can shift that stuff to the post-it component now.
This on YouTube iframe API ready function, and this is a global function.
So we will want to give this post-it component some padding. Let me see if there's anything in my Figma file that helps with that. So from the edge of this, it was 20 pixels. Let's call the padding 20.
Script tag here, I need to create a new script tag with context module.
And then just for our own sanity, let's just say
that
it will have a margin bottom
module will only be executed once, even when I copy this.
That's just to give some separation. Okay, so this is already looking sort of like a post-it note. Yeah. I think I might need to have some more padding, but we'll leave it for right now. It's okay.
I can just copy this script here to create
so
this
then
script tag here. Not this one, but this.
We really only need this as our markup actually, and what we need to do is just have the befores and the afters.
When we do this,
so we're gonna have
on YouTube iframe API.
Oh, cool! I'm gonna check that out in a second. Matthias just created an example of the SVG overlay. Very cool.
But this will not work like this.
So we're going to have a before.
For this is that this function.
And let me go back to our code pen to see what the before is. So we want content position absolute order 1M solid, and then it needs to have a color. Okay, so we're going to change that.
Then I go to my application. I reload it. And then
of course, none of this has
on YouTube iframe API ready function. And this will not work, and the reason for this is
semicolons because it's
function here
SAS.
Is transpiled, and after this transpilation,
what is that color that it should have? Note core
this
is
function is
so
not
that's
a
probably the
function.
different color,
So,
or that's the same color. I think that's the same color.
To make this work is I change this little bit, so I write window dot on YouTube iframe API ready.
Yep, okay, so that makes a little thing up here you can see.
And now when I save it like this...
And this is kind of annoying because it's not ever going to have the...
Now comes from
it's always going to be so much further down than we want.
Function here.
And that's kind of a bummer.
We need to tell our script here, because here I want to execute later this, where it is, this player function here, new YouTube player function. I want to execute this here later, but I need to know when this function is executed. So I decided, I don't know if this is the best solution.
But it's not worth agonizing over now. This isn't make it perfect time, this is just make it work time.
For event dispatching, you can.
So then the after, we need to have something similar.
Function, so this is not Svelte specific. You can also dispatch Svelte events, but this is a JavaScript event or dispatch event. So this is something different.
Wrapper after.
If you don't know this. So we have this window.
Go ahead and add all of our semicolons.
On the window, I will just.
And then this is where we want to have the darker color. So
this event, I will call it.
I am gonna look at our Figma file again. I actually went with a lighter color here, but you know, it probably makes sense to have it be It really is lighter though. On real post-its, it's actually lighter on the underside.
Or what is
I guess I will stick with that idea for now.
Window add event listener, and here I will listen to the event YouTube.
Okay, and there's our post-it. It could definitely do to be bigger. The issue is if we make it a lot bigger, because of the method of this one, it's gonna move over a little bit. Now I'm also gonna give this a margin top of, let's say like 2 round. Yeah, okay, nice. So now we have all of our post-its. That looks good. I'm actually going to go take a look at this Svelte example that Matthias just sent, because I'm very interested how this is done. Okay, so you have a card, and in here you have a bunch of stuff. And I can see that when I resize it, the circle, everything resizes. That's very nice. So you don't have a lot of stuff happening here in the script.
And for example, when we have
you have a div,
players, like
and this is a wrapper.
We always use this player ID.
And then you're just binding the
this YouTube player will not
width
know
and
which
the height.
ID is which player. So here we
I see, and then you just have an SVG inside the div.
And this div.
You put the width as width and the height as height.
Only one player could have this ID
and then you
player,
can make a circle like that.
Because we could
Yeah,
have
I mean,
components,
this makes sense. I like this. I like this approach.
Like this, so we create a dynamic.
I think it especially might make sense, like I said, for the case where I have something more complicated.
Number, and we convert this to a string. So now we can set our div.
And then you have the overlay div here.
To our dynamic div ID like this, and then when we load the YouTube player here,
and you just put this directly in the center.
This player.
That's pretty cool.
This string with this dynamic value. So when I save this and then I go to Chrome, I see this will not work because
I think it might make it kind of tricky depending, like.
So I just need
yeah.
to move.
I could see there being some finagling, especially if you have it like
when this script loads,
like if you have like a very complex HTML layout in here, with like a lot of items and they're all positioned relatively and absolutely and all these things, then it might be kind of tricky. But it definitely works in this case. And in my case, where what I'm thinking of where it might work really well is for these little paper things, because these are each HTML elements, but I want them to have SVGs inside of them. So that might be a nice way to do that. Because unless I can figure out a really simple way to make this little inner corner border shape with CSS. I wish I was good like those people who draw entire pictures with CSS. I wish I was that good at drawing with CSS. But alas, I'm not.
So you will see that we have now here some videos.
So maybe I should try to incorporate some of the YouTube component now. See if I can do that. Okay, so actually this is on svelte.dev, and it doesn't seem to be working now, which is kind of concerning, but perhaps there's some issue that we can debug when we find. There doesn't seem to be any issue here, but perhaps there's an issue that will be easier to debug inside of our own project. So there's some of this that we need and some of this that I don't think we need. Yeah, Cedric said, give it a try, but I'm falling asleep all the time. Yeah, I gotta come up with some more European-friendly streams. The issue is I work, well, right now I don't work because I'm still off of work right now. But if like when I'm normally working, you know, I'm working like Eastern time, 9 to 5. And then, you know, I have to do it sometime after that or on the weekend, basically. So I don't know if weekend streams would work well or not. I feel like people don't watch streams as much on the weekend, but maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I do have a lot of people who come from Europe, and it would be nice to do something at like maybe like 2 p.m. Eastern, something a little bit sooner would be nice. We'll see when I start my new job. Maybe I can figure out, maybe I have like a more flexible schedule, or maybe I can fit something in. But I would like to try that. Okay, so I think it's time to make yeah, and on weekends, if I did it on weekends, I could I mean, I could do it a lot earlier because I'm free whenever on weekends, right? So I could do it definitely at a more like Europe friendly time on weekends. I might try that sometime. Maybe I'll just do it like 1 week and just see how it goes. That might be worth it, you know. Definitely no harm in trying it. Okay, so copying and pasting as I do. This section up here, so what we're doing is there's going to be 2 scripts in here, and this first script is context equals module, so it's just going to be run one time. So if we have, I mean, I'm actually not going to have multiple YouTube components because I'm just going to have the one video probably. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out, Cedric. Good night. Thanks for showing up. So we're just going to have the one YouTube component, but regardless, in case I happen to embed multiple videos, you never know. So this module will just run this code once, and this is because this is just the setup code for the YouTube API. So you can see that what it's really doing is essentially it is bringing in it is just adding a script tag to the head of the document. And it's linking to the YouTube iframe API. And then it's firing an event telling us when that API is ready so that we know down here. And this is actually not using the Svelte event dispatcher. You could, I think, but in this case, it just uses the normal JavaScript event dispatcher. So, you know, normally in JavaScript, you can do this. You can just say window.dispatch event and come up with a custom event that you'd like to make. So in this case, we have a new iframe API ready event that we're making up. And we're going to catch that event down here in, you know, so-called like the normal script. Like this is the script where actually the video is going to be played. So let's go through this a little bit and let me look at it and really understand what it's doing. So we have create event dispatcher and get context from Svelte. We have some variables. This variable is the video ID. This is the most important thing, of course, because that's how we're going to tell this component which video to fetch from YouTube. And then we have the player, which is the actual component. I guess this is just making a unique ID for the div, which is where the video lives, in case we have multiple players. This way we can have multiple. We're not going to have clashing IDs. I don't know if that's really necessary, but it's okay, I guess. This is a function to play the video. I doubt we will need that because the video probably comes with its own player controls. But maybe we might want this, actually. We're probably going to want some other functions similar to this because we're going to want some functions that like skip to particular moments in the video. Okay, and then, so what happens when this iframe API is ready? So this is basically like our version of onMount here for this, this API being linked to. It console logs something, and then it says the player is a new YouTube.player. and we give it the div ID and some events that it can emit. So on ready, it emits player is ready, and on state change, it emits player state change. And then we have some functions here, which I don't think we need. Okay, so I'm basically gonna just copy this all over, and then I'm gonna get rid of some of it and see if it works. Okay, so I don't think I really need right now this player state change and player is ready. I'm just gonna comment those out. And same thing here, I'm gonna comment out this play function. I don't think we need that at the moment. I'm gonna wanna add some probably width and height here, but I will leave that for right now. And then what I'm gonna do is go up to my app.svelte, say let's import YouTube from /youtube.svelte. And then so we have, let's put this at the top just so we can see it. Let's put a YouTube, and which YouTube video are we going to call? So yeah, I guess this is called video ID. Let me see if I can find, I have to off screen here do a little bit of work. I have to go to my own YouTube and then search for this, I have to search for this unlisted video that I have made. Okay. So I have a video ID now. This is a video, this is the supercut, which I uploaded to my own YouTube earlier today. I actually don't know if this will work because I don't know if this video is like unlisted or it's like a private video, it's not public. If you go to my YouTube, you won't be able to see it. So I don't know if this is actually gonna work with the YouTube API, but I guess that's what we're gonna find out. Okay, there's nothing here, so, is player ready? Player is ready is not defined, okay. Perhaps it's because we need to comment out these events because we removed those event functions, so. Chrome extension, net error invalid. I am not sure what that one means. It's possible that that is because of the fact that the video is unlisted. So maybe I'll find another video ID and see if it works with that, like a public ID, and see if it works with that. I don't know what this error means at all. I have no idea whatsoever. Oh. What is the error in a different browser? That's a good point. Well, first of all, I did just notice that there is already an error. YouTube was created with unknown prop video ID. Did I type this incorrectly? That's very possible. No, that should be okay, actually. Yeah, so let's try a different browser. Although these are both actually really the same browser, so I don't know if this is going to be any different. I can also, aha, it was something to do with Brave. Very weird. Interesting. I think when you embed the YouTube component, you named the prop video ID. Yeah, isn't that what it's called? Oh, I put it ID. Okay. This is the reason, is because I called it ID. Honestly, it makes more sense to me to call it ID. So why don't I just change it here? And here. So that I don't continuously retype that. Thank you, Matthias. Okay. Aha, we still have a playback error. Is it now working over here? Yeah, interesting. For some reason, Brave really doesn't like... Sometimes Brave does have these weird network errors that are rather confusing. So... let's open up our console. And let's make this bigger. Okay. Okay, we're still getting some sort of failed to load resource error blocked by client. I mean, I am running a real web server here, so I don't think the issue should be anything to do with the server. But this does seem like something. This does seem like something to do with the YouTube API. Well, always Google the error. Nope, that wasn't helpful. Seems that it liked to play an ad. Interesting. Like, you think that it's not allowing it to play ads? Perhaps I have an ad blocker up and it doesn't like that? Yeah, I think even with the ad blocker off, it seems to not like to play this. I will have to look into this a little more. Let me just double check that I haven't made any mistakes here. Video ID, that's all correct. It's also possible that something has changed with the YouTube it's also possible that something has changed here with the YouTube iframe API. So let me double check that this hasn't changed at all, because it wasn't working on svelte.dev either, this example, and this example is like a couple years old, and you can see that it's not working here either. But I mean, I looked at the code and it looks like it makes sense. Also, I don't know why they've imported set context and on mount here. Perhaps I should remove that. That doesn't seem necessary. We're not actually using those. We're also not using get context here. Yeah, it would be easier, but I do need to have it embedded in this way because you need to have this like player available, because later on I'm going to need to do stuff like skip to a particular point in the video. And you know, you can only do that by you know, doing stuff like this, like player.play video and player.pause video. So that's why I need to do that. So let me double check. Okay, so youtube.com iframe API is where they are pointing this tag. And it looks like that hasn't changed, at least according to this guide from YouTube. Okay, so one thing to double check is if this event is firing. I actually didn't remember to check that. So this should console log hello if this event fires. Okay, so the event has fired, which means that iframe API ready. So this is all working apparently, because this on YouTube iframe API ready, this is actually this is not like something we came up with. This happens when this API is loaded, and so if the API is loaded correctly, then this event will fire. So at least we know that this API is loaded correctly. Let's take a look. I actually didn't take a look here at the at this element to make sure that it was. Wow, there's a lot of crap here. Okay. So we have an iframe. One thing that we could do is to replace the video ID I may have discovered the problem. Perhaps it was because I was so overzealous in my wanting to rename ID because I thought that they were so dumb that I actually screwed it up. Yep, okay. So, the answer is we need to go back to their naming scheme, because that wasn't something that they chose. That was something that that was something that was actually in the YouTube API. You have to spell it like this if you want to use the same naming. Of course, I could specify the name in the object, but if I want to do it like this, then there we go. Okay. I discovered this playlist yesterday, by the way, when I was doing some writing, and this is the perfect playlist, I think. It's called No Thoughts, Head Empty, Nintendo Music. This is a great playlist for when you're like staring at a blank screen, which is usually what I do when I start writing. Okay, so these issues are all fixed. Now let me make sure, now let me try to pass it the ID of my unlisted video and see if that's an issue. It's not.
It's really beyond words.
Okay.
It's really incalculable.
Damn it! Jim!
Okay, hold hold on. Judge is in session. What is the problem here?
All right. So we have the video playing. Wonderful. What else can I do in like a very short amount of time? Because I have little time today, unfortunately. I think one thing would be we could do the width and the height. That's a quick fix, hopefully. I'm also just gonna stick this. I'm just gonna get rid of these. I'll just leave them commented out. It's okay. For cleanliness, wouldn't it be nice if I just reduced, or if I just removed all of this, if I just removed all of this code, but perhaps I want to keep it here to remind myself that these events are things that I can do, because I think later I'm going to need to add some of these events back. Okay, so I'm going to set some default values for these, just in case I don't set the value myself. But then I'm going to put down here height, width. Oops, it didn't like that. Is it because I got it backwards? Is it supposed to be... Oh, whoops, I said the width was 390. No, the width is 640 and the height is 390. Yes, okay. But now I should be able to pass this my own width and height from here. So in case when I make this, I want to make it larger, I can do that. So let's say width is like, I wonder what happens if you give it the non-16:9 ratio. Like like what if I tell it that the width is supposed to be like 600? I don't know. And the height is like 1000. This is just random made up values. Oh, once again, I've made the same mistake. I want the height to be smaller than the width, 600. Okay, it just scales. That seems nice. That's a nice feature here.
It's really beyond words.
Cool. I should check and see. Yeah, it's very interesting that Brave, this browser, I guess I'm gonna have to look into this bug because apparently this browser, oh no, there it is. Oh, but see, now they say that the video is private. Very odd. Perhaps it has something to do with Chrome, because I'm like logged into Chrome, I can see it. I'll have to check if I switch this video to unlisted, perhaps. Does that make a difference? It still doesn't like it. That change might take a little while to propagate. I did change that over in my YouTube settings there, but I don't know if that will propagate right now. Okay. Right, so is that a good stopping point? Let me see what we've done so far. So I have rendered a video. I have a post-it component. I might make a short list of to-dos. I think it might be time to kind of take stock of the current state of the project. I'm just going to open this up in Figma here and start making some to-dos. To-do. Let's make this much larger. To-do. And then let's make this smaller. And let's make it Helvetica. Okay, so a couple of things are, I'm gonna say fix post-it component so that there isn't a big margin on the top. I'm gonna look into how to do that. I don't want to just sit here and stare at the internet for like 30 minutes, so I'm gonna look at that off stream and then I'll come back and fix that later. I'm also going to say, what else do we need to do? We need to figure out how to stack the post-its. So in the design, you know, these should be stacked. Right now they're just floating in space. So that's another thing we need to do. Develop a component for the computer window border look. So that's going to be the wrapper for this and for this. Style the histogram to look like papers. And then so that's sort of some look and feel stuff that will get it like 80% of the way to where it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to work on the functionality a little bit. So I keep mentioning these YouTube things. So how is this going to work? Like, how is this actually going to function? Well, there should be a couple ways that you can navigate this. So one should be that you can just autoplay. So you autoplay the video, and as it plays, the active post-it, let's call it, will change to match the clip that's currently playing on the screen. And also there will be a little indicator down here that like highlights which point you're at in the timeline. So all of those things should be synchronized. So I'm gonna try to do that first. I'm gonna say, actually, you know, it might be easier to do the other functionality first, which is like, well, let's just try that. Okay, so let's say, what are a couple things we need to do to make that work? We need to track active quote ID based on video time. And then, you know, so like related to that is like update active quote to highlight the timeline and update the post-it. Then we need to implement click on timeline to navigate to that quote. And then also perhaps implement hover on timeline gives preview of quote. So I'm not sure about this one. That's a question mark. But what I want to do is that there's this autoplay, and then there's also that you can navigate this by clicking on any one of these papers, and it'll automatically jump to that time in the video and then update, of course, the card. So those are the sort of immediate to do things. Future is like hero page, story section, and a lot of this still needs to be designed. About page, outro, charts. I don't know if there's going to be charts in the outro or not. So that's all stuff that needs to be done in the future. Probably like icons / Easter eggs. I mentioned I want to do some of these sort of like little icons on the screen that have Easter eggs if you click them or something fun like that. But that's all sort of for the future. I think the goal for the next like month or so is to get this main portion worked out. And I may do a little bit of this off stream. Like I may sort of research some of this stuff and then show you how I did it when I come on stream. Because a couple of these things I need to really dig into and like basically do a couple of hours of just staring at Google and like trying things randomly. And as fun as that would be on stream, I might not. I think I might research that off stream and then try to have it ready for when I begin, so that I can be more prepared than I have in the past. Up until now, I've basically just been, trying things in the moment, pretty untested. But I think it might be time to start front loading that a little bit. But yeah, I think this was fun. We got YouTube video rendered, post-its rendered, so I have to take off, like I said, but thank you very much to everybody for sticking around, for chatting. Thank you to Matthias for helping me debug as usual. And I will see everybody next Thursday. Bye-bye.